All right, this video is going to be on making a forecast, 5-year financial forecast for your company. Maybe you want to use it for your own personal forecasting, what have you. But anyway, so here we are. We're started with a blank sheet here, and we're just going to start creating stuff. There's a lot of other sheets we can create to do a feed into this, but we're just going to start with building the forecast. So what I'm going to do first is come down and start in B2. And we're going to start with our beginning cash available balance. So over here, we're going to do beginning balance. And let's even go one more down because I want to put over here, we're going to do our starting month. So our starting month is going to be August. Actually, let's zoom this in so you can see it. There we go. So right now it's August 2025. So we're going to start with, we're going to do 08/01/2025. And we're going to do Control-1. Let's find a date that we like. I think this one. Let's try this one. Yeah, that's the one I want to use. Okay, and then this right here is going to be, let's try using yield month formula. And we're going to do start date and then do 1, and it should give us, change this to Alt HFP. Okay, and now if we fill that right, yep, then we get that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 5 years. So in 5 years it'll be August 2030. So we're just going to keep going right a little ways, and maybe there's a quicker way to do this, but we're just going to keep going until we get to August of 2030. So there's our 5-year mark. Now we're at the end here, and something we want to do, we can do this now or do it later, but I like to do is add the words end here and then just fill this down like, let's do it to 50. What that does helps us navigate, because if you go from here to there, you want to get to the end to see your available cash balance. And you don't have the end, if we go down to row 51 and you see we go all the way to XFT, you go all the way to the end of the sheet. You don't want that. So I like to have just the word in there to act as a stopper for when you use the control arrow key to navigate. Okay, so we're going to start with $1,000, and we're going to format this. And we got a lot of numbers we're going to fit in here. So we don't want decimal places. We do want the 1,000 separator. And let's go font. We'll keep it Times New Roman, but we want to bring it down to probably 10 because we got to fit a lot of stuff in here. And then we'll just apply this formatting. Yeah, we'll apply this formatting to a lot of cells here. That'll get us started. Okay, so we're going to have here, we're going to start with our incomes at the top. And let's do, we'll call these projects. Project 1, client 1, whatever, just anything that generates revenue for your company. That's what you want to do. So project 2, and let's do project 3, and then what you can do here is just highlight these, grab the little corner there and bring it down. Let's do 10 projects. Okay. And this Alt WVG, so that's Alt WVG to remove the grid lines just so we can start to clean this thing up. And let's just change this to incomes, and then let's push these over just a little bit. All right. Okay. And for this here, let's go Control-1, go to border. Let's do this line right here. Just put that on the bottom. And you could do a little blue color there maybe. Whatever. Doesn't matter. You can pick whatever colors you want. You just want to kind of get this, get those things separated. All right. Now there's a lot of other things we could do here, but if you start and you only have one project and you think you're going to get client 2 or client 10 or project 10, 2 through 10 or whatever, the point of the forecast is that if we start building this thing today and we only have project 1 and it's a consistent project to go do maintenance somewhere or do work for somebody or something like that, whether you're building websites or fixing fleet vehicles for a large corporation, if it's consistent work and you say that you invoice about $2,500 a month every month, and we got a year-long contract, we're going to send this out to August of 2026. And just so you're going to highlight those cells that fill that out, and you're going to do Control R and fill that right. And then, hey, we're currently bidding on a project for another company, and it might be $1,750 a month that we're going to get. You're just going to do the same thing. Okay, this is hypothetical. So you can also add something like, kind of impractical in this case, but standard Excel practices would have you put up here in the row 1, you put estimated or est, and then Control I, and then you would make this like a 9 or an 8, and then you would fill this right because it's beyond the period of what we have. Now, if you had a long historical period that you're populating here for your original statement of cash flows, and then you're going to forecast based off of that, you could do that, and you would have all this estimated so that if you're going to have multiple people looking at this sheet, and you would see the first, let's say you had statement of cash flows from August 2020 up to August 2025, you would put actual and just format paint, and these actually would not be italicized. You want to italicize the estimated portions. Another thing you could do is that as you get further, as you use this, you input the actual cash flow from a project, the actual income from a project, and then when we get to September, we're going to keep this as actual. And what we'll do is we'll hide that. And then when we get towards the end of September, we're going to change this to actual, remove the I, italicized option, and then you hide that as you go on and go on. And then so you're building your historical statement of cash flows. Okay. So we'll just put this back to estimated, leave that as actual. Just general practices, good practices to keep everything tracked accordingly. And we're just going to do, there's some other ways we can do this. So we're just going to leave all these blank right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to do total revenue. And if we did alt equals, oh, look, it worked this time. So alt equals just going to sum the entire numbers inside that column. And this is, it's probably just grabbing because 2,500 is the next filled cell, or B5 is the next filled cell. So it'll probably just grab that. Then we're going to do, this is where our end stopper is going to come into play already. I'm going to do Control Shift, Control Right. And then you want to hold down Shift key and just go to the arrow, just left arrow one time to get out of column BK. If you don't do that, and you press the arrow key, it de-highlights everything. So you got to hold that Shift key and go left arrow one stroke, and you get out of column BK. And we're going to do Control R, and you can see it's auto summing all these all the columns there. As a matter of formatting, you want to keep all these without the dollar signs. And you imagine if you did dollar signs in every single one of these, it really starts to crowd the page if every single one of these is filled. So try not to do that. And we're just going to go with a general number. Nope, number. Then we're going to do expenses. And we're going to start with overhead expenses. So we're going to start with things like rent, utilities, corporate insurance. This could be if you have E&O insurance for the entire corporation. It could be in this as well. And supplies. This needs to be a little more specific, like shop supplies. Like if you have a working shop or something like that, because office supplies goes into the G&A category. Shop supplies, well, let's just keep it like that. So we add a little bit of formatting here, indent these, and then let's go with this guy right here, and let's do control 1. Let's do border, and we're gonna do, let's keep it thin, and we'll do the top border and the bottom border, like that. Yep, that looks good there. And then sometimes just to help with the eyes to break up stuff, you can go into fill, and we just want to use some light colors here. So like a light, something really light. You could use grays if you wanted, so that when you print, if you need to print these off, you could use the grays, but something at the very top where it's just super light, and just fill that in like that. And so you can see it's already starting to take shape there. Okay. And this, the same thing. We want to format this guy right here. So we're going to do a thicker border here, I think. Just pick that line right there. Boom. All right, there we go. Okay. And push this guy back over. All right, so our rent, let's say it's $7,500 a month. Utilities are 1,000. Internet 500. Corporate insurance is 250. Shop supplies, let's say it's 325. Okay, so we have all of this, and then we can just Control R, and we fill that out. All right, and to you see how corporate insurance is cut off? What we could do is we're going to, I got a macro key programmed in here, and it's, what it does is makes that cell wide enough where you can see everything. But what it is doing is it's doing Alt H O I. So we can add some more expenses in here. And we'll just add a little bit more in here. And then for the sake of this, just kind of equals rand between, let's say it's 5 and 500. Okay, and just fill this down, and Control C, Alt HVSU, because if you leave that as a formula, then every time you recalculate the sheet, it will recalculate that random number, and then when you get all these cells filled out, it'll start to really bog down the calculation there. So we just want to paste those as hard-coded numbers. Okay, now we're going to do total expenses. I'm going to push this back over to the left. And actually, with this one up here, we're going to do Alt HB for borders, and then we're going to do U, which is the double bottom border and single line top border, and then that way you know that's a sum. All right, so we're going to do our Alt equals, get that, and then we're going to turn this over. And one more time, we're going to do Alt HBU. Okay, so we got our total expenses, and this is 12 and this is 10. So let's go ahead and fix that. Control 1, font, and font size is 10. All right, and we need to add in some revenue here. Okay, so let's do equals rand between, and let's say bottom is 1,000 and the top is, let's go with 5,500. Okay, and that gives us some nice looking numbers that aren't just even numbers like I came up with. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing. Alt, no, I'm sorry. We're gonna do Control C, now Alt HVSU, escape, and these are all hard coded now. And then we want to go down into this one, Control Shift right key, and then Control R. Now we fill that in, And let's go ahead and just say this project is going to be a 5-year project. And let's say this is going to be a 5-year project. Okay. And there's another one I'll do where there's a macro you can create where it randomly deletes out some of this stuff to simulate a vendor or a client not paying you, or something like that, or a project drops off, whatever might happen. And for the most part, we're just gonna use this stuff just so we can get. This is just the purpose of this. Just get numbers on the page and do the forecast. I think is this formatting all the same? Looks different. It all looks different. I guess it's just the way I'm zoomed in, but that's okay. All right. Let's maybe change our rent to 5,000. Yeah, because we're still gonna add in our G&A expenses and payroll expenses. And I don't want our numbers to be negative, so no need for that. Okay. Yep. So you can do F2 to do a quick audit, make sure that everything's being summed correctly. F2 is a quick way to get into the edit. Instead of taking your cursor and clicking up here in the formula bar, once you highlight a cell, you just do F2 and it'll go into editing the cell. Okay, so let's change this because it's total overhead expenses. So total overhead expenses. Now we're going to do G&A expenses. And we want to format Painter this guy right here. There we go. And let's see. Nope. Whoop. There we go. Now we've got our, yeah. See, I've got, it went all the way over there, but that's okay, right? Nobody's really looking at that anyway. And so our G&A expenses technically is going to be corporate salaries and different types. You've got bookkeeper or AP, AR, staff, and you have advertising. And if you have a location that does manufacturing or something like that, or some sort of lab, that could be one rent. And then you can have if you have a building that's just like an office suite with a desk in it, and it's just your back office staff, you would call that your corporate office. Okay. Legal fees and filing fees, if you got to file with your Secretary of State or something like that, those fees would fall into here. Training for staff, some travel for non-project related travel would go in here as well. So that's probably pretty good right there. Corporate salaries I'm actually going to leave out of this because there's another section that I cover on doing payroll, and I find it's easier to not have the corporate salaries in there, especially for a small business, because a lot of people are double duty. Sometimes the CEO's in the shop working or doing other stuff, so kind of hard to narrow that down for a small business. So I'm going to take out corporate salaries, but and then we'll throw in one other category here. We'll just call this our miscellaneous category. Okay, and then we can just add. Well, let's just leave it like that. And this is going to get pretty big, so we'll just push that out like that. And again, we're just going to take out that. Okay, so advertising. So let's say we're going to spend $750, and we're going to do $1,200 a month on this guy. And we're going to do, if you pay a retainer or something like that, a monthly retainer maybe. Let's do $500. And then this is going to be sort of a whatever the annual filing fees are divided by 12. And you could just say that's 75. And training, let's just say you have mandatory training you have to do. Travel, let's say your travel budget is $1,000 a month. And then miscellaneous, let's just put that at $750. Actually, let's change that to $850. Okay. Same thing again. All the way over, Control R. And then we're going to do total G&A expenses. Push that over, Alt equals, and adjust this to be 10, Control R. All right. Oh, and we want to add our formatting, Alt HBU. Okay. And there we go. So now we want to sum the total. You can just kind of skip a line here. And we're going to do sum of or total expenses. And we can do overhead plus G&A. And you don't have to use total. You can use whatever you want, whatever word you want there, but we want to be careful. This one we're going to do equals G&A plus total overhead. All right. Control R, and then let's adjust that font size 10, and let's highlight this. Alt HBU. All right. And because this is our total expenses, this is the bottom line, our total expense. This is what we want to focus on. So what we're going to do is we're going to give this a little bit of formatting, something like a light reddish. Yes, let's just run with that for now. Okay. So that's our total expense. Now our payroll, we're going to build another sheet that is payroll. So let's do that. So we're going to do, move this over here. Let's rename this to forecast. And then Alt HOR, we're going to do payroll. All right. So your payroll, we're going to start here in A1, employee rates, and we're going to do something like make this a little bit big and obvious. And we're going to get rid of these grid lines here. Here in A2, we're going to do title, and we're going to do, so we're going to start at the top, CEO, CFO, and if you're, whatever positions you have in a company, you don't need to have these positions. It's just, if you do, great. If you don't, great. Just put in whatever you want. And then sales rep. And if you have your sales reps on commission, we're going to do sales rep less commission. So you either put a minus sign, commission, or you would type in less commission so that you know this does not include their commission. And we could do IT hardware level 1, IT hardware level 2, and IT server manager. Okay. What else can we have? Bookkeepers, and so you have inventory manager, engineering technician. Okay. There we go. So let's keep those. G1, make this a little bit bigger, and then should we keep that 14, I guess, so you can see a little bit better. All right. So now we're going to add in right here, not all the way down actually. Let's just start to what we see on the page, Control 1. We're going to put a border on the right side of this. So it kind of divides it up. All right. Then we're going to do the hourly cost, the overhead factor, the number of employees, weekly hours, and hours per position, weekly cost, bi-weekly cost if you're on a bi-weekly pay schedule, monthly cost, yearly cost. Okay, now these, what you want to do is right here, you want to take these cells and you want to fill them with something. I don't really like any of these colors, but let's just fill it with that. Let's go ahead and merge and center. And this is going to be company match cost. When you hire an employee, you have to pay all types of insurance and things like that on the employee. And so there's an overhead cost to doing that. And so our overhead, should be our overhead cost, and our overhead factor is going to be, let's just throw that right here. All right. And so if it's for every dollar that you pay an employee, if you have to pay 10 cents in insurance, unemployment insurance, things like that, it's 110% overhead factor. For this one, we're going to do 110%. Okay. So if somebody at the hourly rate is, let's say, $75 an hour, and we're going to go ahead and format this as accounting. All right. The overhead cost is going to be the hourly cost times that. We want to reference that. So you can do F4 to do a hard reference on that. And then, let's Control X and paste that down there so that we actually line up with our stuff here. Okay. And we want to do, let's say, the C-suite people all make the same amount. All right. And then the head of engineering, 70, CRM manager, 55, sales rep, 35, ITR level 1, 35, 42, 25, inventory manager, 25, engineering technician, let's do 27. All right. So you can see that our overhead costs are calculated right here. All right. Now, number of employees, the one thing you want to do, we'll do color formatting in a minute here. So how many CEOs you have? You got 1. How many CFOs? 1. COOs? 1. CPOs? 1. CTOs? 1. Head engineering? 1. CRM manager? 1. All right. Sales reps, maybe you got 5 of those. IT level 1, and maybe you got 3 of those. Level 2, you got 1 of those. IT server manager, you got 1 of those. Bookkeepers, maybe you got 2 of those. Inventory manager, you got 1 of those. Engineering technician, let's say you got 3 of those. Okay, and you could just keep adding more positions down here. Like you can have engineering technician apprentice, or journeyman, or master technician, or whatever. If you got welders, you got electricians, whatever, you're gonna add those in here. All right, so weekly hours, full-time or part-time? All right, you're gonna do 40 hours for the CEO. Let's just say everybody does 40 hours. Okay, and then your hours per position is gonna be, this is total hours to the company. So it's going to be column D times column E. And then we're just going to fill that down. And we should get some live feeds there. There we go. So those are summing nicely. Okay. Then weekly cost is going to be this. This is company match cost, right? So this is what it costs the company for this individual to work on a weekly basis when they do 40 hours. So, and there's all these positions. And then the biweekly cost and monthly cost and yearly cost, there's a lot of different ways you could do this. If you're on a biweekly schedule, there's typically 26 pay periods in a year. Do something a little bit different. If you have a weird schedule, then you could do yearly cost would be equals this times 52, and then divide this by 12. And you could, so your biweekly cost is going to be this cost, your weekly cost times 2. And what we want to do is we want to get rid of those decimals just so we can keep our sheet clean. Monthly cost, there's a couple different ways you could do this. You could either try multiplying out, or you could divide back from yearly. So if you do yearly cost, can be this times 52, and then your monthly equals this divided by 12. You could also calculate network hours in a particular year. So if our period is going to be September, let's just start from September. And we'll delete this in a minute, and then the end period is September 1st, 2026. Okay, now I'm not going to do the holidays, but you would put holidays in here, and what you do is once you have your holidays, your start date, end date. All right, there's 262 working days, and if each work day you get 8 hours. So you have 2,096 work hours, and then you take out holidays, things like that, and it ends up being about 2,080. If you want to do what's the average of that, equals this divided by 12. So the average hourly, or the average number of hours worked per month is 174 hours. Thing. It would be your overhead cost times, okay, you get 14,410. Just make sure it's correct. All right. Okay. So those are looking okay. And then you've got your totals. All right. So we want to know how many hours, how many human hours are being put in, and then just do all that. And format painter. Okay. There we go. So this is what our monthly payroll looks like. And we're not going to be able to afford all that. So we're going to have to drop a whole bunch of people off here. So let's start dropping people off. See what our forecast is. What do you say? We got to keep going, huh? Let's change these guys down to 50. All right. So your total payroll cost equals the company match cost. And you want to do a hard code there. So it's F4, not a hard code, sorry. You got a hard reference. So lock that reference in there. All right. Same thing, Control R. Now, one thing you can do is you can get fancy, and below this, let's clear that out. Below this, you could say that this is the current year. And then what you want to do is copy all this. Skip a line maybe, and then say second year. So if you have plans for growth, then you can add people in here. Okay, and maybe we'll hire a sales rep. All right. Okay, Control C. And you can call this your third year. And you're going to hire some more people here. You're going to hire a head of engineering, so on and so forth. And then what you would do is you would take this number here, or take the monthly cost, go into your forecast, and get to the second year and third year and all that, and load those in there. There's some other formulas you could do and if functions you could do to automatically populate that in there, but kind of hard coding that in there. You just got to be careful that you've selected the correct year for the forecast, and you're not using year one forecast to do the calculation all the way through. So you want to account for that growth there. Let's not fix it, but let's adjust the font here. So Control 1, and then font, and then 10. Probably a faster way to do that, but let's go with that. Let's get rid of the $sign there. Okay. All right, so now we're going to do total expenses plus payroll. All right. Then we're going to do net income. So it's actually technically it could be your EBITDA before, because we're not calculating for taxes paid and other depreciation and things like that. So you could call it your EBITDA. What we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to find our total revenue, and then we're going to subtract our total expenses plus our payroll. And you can see we're here in the red. All right. Now what we can do is there we go. Format, paint, all that. And what we can do is we can add some conditional formatting here, like you highlight all those cells, you go into conditional formatting, and you're going to highlight cell rules, and you could do less than, okay? So format cells that are less than this, but we actually want to do 0, okay, to show that we're in the negative. And then I should not have unselected those. Do the same thing and highlight, and then we're going to do another rule, highlight cell rules greater than, all right? If it's greater than 0, then you're going to do green fill with dark, no, let's see. Green fill with dark green text. And then if we go back over here, and let's just for a moment, let's just say that we're going to do $100,000 that year. See, now we go green. Okay, and let's undo that. Now we're back in the red. Okay, so now to get your ending cash available balance, you're going to take your available balance here, which you started with, and you're going to add the change in your cash over here, your profit, and then gives you your ending cash available balance. And just fill that right, and you can see that we're going to lose a lot of money here. And we can do the same thing here. Let's say we want to do, one thing I like to do is when you're doing a forecast, and didn't mean hit control, it's just a habit. Let's say you're doing a forecast, you want to know when you're going to have enough cash in the bank to buy a piece of equipment or hire a new person or buy a building or something like that. We can do conditional formatting, highlight cell rules greater than, and let's say that the magic number we want is $120,000. We want the green fill, and you can do custom if you want, but we're just going to leave it like that. You can see we're never going to reach it. Okay, so what we got to do is we got to increase our revenue. What if we, all right, let's do ran between. Okay. Control C, Alt HVSU. There. Now we're getting into some profit margins there. We got some good profit margins now. There you go. You can go in there, you can play with it. You can say, well, if we hire more people or if we take on a new project or something like that, what's it going to be? Now, the other thing that we didn't really add in here is that you could say that these incomes from the projects are not necessarily the invoice amounts that you receive, but the net amounts you receive after you paid for your direct expenses. Or you can try and add in those expenses right here. So just below our expenses column, we're going to do shift spacebar. That's going to highlight every single column in this workbook. And then we're going to go down a few, give us some space, and we're going to do, see this little paintbrush right there, format same below. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to call this our project expenses. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to duplicate this. And just for sake of quickness, we're going to do, let's say it's 10%. We'll just do this equals times 0.90. Whoop. See, we don't have our N there. Whoop. There we go. Fill in that gap there. All right. Shift that over. Alt equals. Dang it. There we go. So now you got our total project expenses. And this number is going to change again, right? So now we have to total expenses. So we're going to add in total project expenses plus that. And then you want to fill that right. Right? And now you see that we're running out of money again. Anyway, that doesn't matter that we're going negative. I mean, in real life it would matter, but in this particular case, it doesn't matter because we're just about creating the forecast, this working forecast here. And you can see that the way our expenses are right now or the way that our project revenues are, it doesn't work. right now. That is the basic, very, very, very basic way to build your forecast. There's other ways you could do it where if these become actuals, so we can, let's create a copy of this. Okay. And these are all hard code numbers. So let's hard code this real quick. All right, so now these are no longer formulas. Those are all hard coded in there. And we're going to change this to actual. All right. So let's pretend that it's past January 27. And we're going to do estimated. All right. So these are estimated. So what you can do is you can do a formula like equals the average of all of this. Did we get the S column? Yeah, we got the S column. And then we're going to fill this down. Okay. And then if you fill this right, and it just carries forward. And so you can do things are a little more, there's different ways to calculate that. And the other thing you want to do is you want to go back to where your estimated starts and do like a different color up here. Just so that you know when you're in the, you can quickly see when you're in a estimated or non-estimated. Different ways you can do that is go to fill, and we're going to just do a light orange pink color there. And the other thing you want to do is we're going to do the same thing here. Actually, let's see if we can just copy this from Control C and then Control V, and then that becomes what we want. We're going to shift down, Control D, Control R. Okay, so let's stop there. But now it's not clear that this is hard coded. This is an actual number. This is a formula number. Even though it says it up here, maybe you scroll down and you forget where you're at. I do like to do this though. What I like to do is go over here and do highlight all this and then freeze panes based on selection. And then we should be able to scroll down here. So if you change this number right here, you can see the available balance change, and you can see if you scroll all the way over here, you can see that you can always see what your cost category is no matter where you're at. Okay, what we want to do is do one more bit of formatting, and we're going to do F5 special, and we want to look for our constants, and we want to take away, we don't want to look for text, we just want to look for numbers, logicals, and errors, and we're going to do OK. So we've got everything that's a constant selected. We're going to go Control 1, and this is sort of a general formatting for, oh, sorry, we don't want to fill this, no color. We're going to go to font, then go to color, choose this color right here, and this is kind of a general rules of Excel, is that your constants are, the numbers that are hard-coded are blue, and then the formulas are black. Do OK, and now we can see that we have our numbers that are hard-coded are blue, and anything that's formula-driven is black, and that way we know that if we need to track down an error or something like that, that we go to the ones that are formula-driven. Okay, so I think that's going to do it for this video, and the next videos that we do will be adding things like charts to visualize your change in cash available and things like that. And we'll also do a calculation of ratios, and we'll do some other sheets that will allow you to do a COGS, cost of goods sold, or cost of services sold, that will populate your project expenses. And we'll also do some revenue generators, things like that, and to kind of help take out the bias from this forecast and give you a more realistic estimate of what it's going to be.